Adam, so good to see you. Good to see you on the show. I believe this is one of your first podcasts, so thanks for making the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Ricky. Good to be here.
If this is one of your first podcasts, this is definitely not the right one to go on first.
This is certainly the right one. He's been waiting for the right moment. So Adam, you're an OG when it comes to founder and entrepreneur mindset, especially in New Zealand. Take us back to mcom. What inspired you to start mcom? Where did the idea come from? And what did you end up doing with the thing?
Yeah, it goes back a fair way, back into 2000. I'd come back from a bit of overseas travel with my girlfriend, now wife. And I didn't actually found mcom. A guy called Stuart Christie did. And he had this, I didn't know him when I got back, but he was known to a lot of people that I knew. And I was hiking in the Himalayas with my good friend Graham Ransley, and we were thinking, what are we going to do? We don't really want to work for the man anymore. We didn't come up with any great ideas, but Stu was keen for me to join this startup of his, and his idea was really looking at all that had happened when the web came out. He was going to do that for mobile, so it was really a development shop, and that's what it was called, mobile commerce. He had a team and everything ready to come across, and then call it what you like, the .com, the tech bubble, the whatever burst, and the shit at the fan, and that sort of fell apart. And I said, why don't we have a crack anyway? And we came up with this view that rather than building a development organization, a mobile phone had a screen, a keyboard, it can communicate, and it was secure, and we'd all come from the payments industry. So why don't we look into mobile banking, mobile payments, other secure transactions? And that's when we brought Graham Ransley in as well. So Stu kicked it off, but the three of us are really co-founders. And the passion for me was to try and grow something. For me, be involved in a project I was passionate about. I'd done some sort of semi-corporate stuff, but yeah, that was the motivation and the backstory.
Yeah, nice. And obviously, great success story too. You sold her off. So maybe take us through the process of acquisition, because that would have been quite uncommon back then, Adam. So selling a New Zealand company to a foreign company, what were the learnings from that?
It was worth going back a little bit, just to, even the exit was 13 years ago now, 2011, and the journey was from 2000, when we were just way too early, through to the exit, was obviously had lots of twists and turns. The starting was, let's build something here, and we had great relationships with some of the banks from prior lives, and so we were able to get things away. And we actually looked to the US market in 2004, but there was no way, there was no demand. There wasn't actually demand down here either. We just were very persistent. Yeah, mate, it just kept nagging, stuck with it. Huge numbers of conversations. Some people that really trusted us. Steve Yurkovich, who was at ASB at the time and now CEO of KiwiBank, was one of those, and many others that gave us a go. And I think that's one of the things that you can have in New Zealand, is we've got access to these people who want to see startups succeed, and they'll give us a chance. And if you deliver well and help them be successful, then it can really set you underway. So we had good success in New Zealand with the banks, and then a huge deal for us was winning ANZ Group across Australia and all of New Zealand. And that was back then, and even now, the big four Australian banks are all in the top sort of 30 in the world. So they're well regarded. We never really, as we saw in 2008-9, Australia and New Zealand's banking system's a bit more robust than some other parts of the world. But then the iPhone came out in 2006, and that was when we thought, hey, maybe we should have a look at the US again. And so we had a super deliberate plan. We had Serge, who I know you know well, Ricky, and is a really good mate of mine, was on board, and a guy, Matt Krogstad, who's now running Groove after I stepped out of that, just hit the phones, and we learned a huge amount. We knew that we were selling to banks, and what we kept hearing was, geez, we'd absolutely love to roll out your mobile banking, and we'll buy it as soon as Fiserv brings it to us, or as soon as FIS brings it to us. So other than the really big banks, it was a very aggregated market where these small banks, of which there were 19,000 banks and credit unions at the time up there, just bought everything from one place. So it became clear that we might be able to win some really big banks, and you were really fortunate to win Washington Mutual and a couple of others. We needed to work with a big partner, and we determined Fiserv, who ultimately acquired us, was the partner we should work with. And we had on our board a fantastic man, John Perham, who walked in one day and he said, have you guys ever heard of Fiserv? This dude I used to work with wants me to give them a hand with something. He's chief sales officer. And I said, well, actually, we're pretty keen to speak to them. We were really lucky. We just got access at the highest levels, and it was slow. It took us well over a year to close them. They went through lots of changes. The partner we would have second most want to work with was the biggest online banking provider called Carillion. And our deal with Fiserv got slowed down while they acquired Carillion, which meant we got them both at once. So yeah, just a huge amount of grit and hard work to get that deal across the line. And we signed that on the 31st July 2008, and the GFC hit. And I think I landed on the 8th of August, and by the 20th of August, the GFC had hit. By like the 25th of August, our biggest customer, Washington Mutual, didn't even exist anymore. They'd been sold to the Fed, had sold them to Chase. Like the whole world just really turned upside down. We were selling to the heart of the tornado. 29 was really gentle for us in startup land, but it was the doldrums. It was pretty frustrating. We managed to survive, and then the whole of us, 4 of us and our families moved up to the States. So 4 of the kind of 5 core executive team. Graham stayed down here and did all the real work, and the rest of us went up to the States. And we were all with my young kids at the time in Steamboat Springs skiing. We'd sold 1 deal all of 2009, and then I had my BlackBerry and on the chairlift. Got another one. So I think we signed on my BlackBerry. We signed 6 deals while we were on the chairlift in Steamboat Springs mucking around, on top of only signing 1. And these deals were big deals with big implementation requirements and all the other stuff we had on. And 2010 was like absolutely intolerable, really. I couldn't do it again. It was brutal, just dealing with trying to get all of those customers live, Fiserv wanting to buy us and having negotiations there. Really, the team just absolutely killing it in terms of understanding. I mean, you guys all heard the cliche of racing down the motorway at 100 miles an hour over there and trying to change the tyres while the fan belt's flying off. That was absolutely us. We had to completely rebuild the product at the same time as get all these customers live, build out a full SaaS platform for Fiserv small banks, slow every sales deal down we could. I think I've become the best person in the world at slowing deals down. Not what you thought.
Yep. Usually not a kind of flame, but yeah.
Well, exactly right. Yeah. So then we were having these conversations with Fiserv the whole way along. It got pretty toxic because while they wanted to buy us and needed to buy us, we were letting them down with some of their customers, and their customers expected more of them and they expected more of us, and we just couldn't keep up. But we liked them. Our tech was great. They did look elsewhere, and so we had deep negotiations for months. We did full due diligence, and at the end of November 2010, they go, "Nah, we're not going to buy you."
Really?
And oh, fuck.
Turned you down?
Yeah, and so we're like, okay. In some regards, it was a relief because we've been dealing with it for 12 months. But then one of the big projects we had up there with one of the really big regional banks went live in on budget in record time, and they had never had a project of any magnitude defect-free live like that. And there's a guy in our team, Simon Chen, who pretty much pulled that off together. And I think Fiserv then said, all our team telling us these MCOM guys are right, maybe they are. So their M&A guy, Jim Cox, called me and said, yeah, we do want to buy you after all. And Martin Goldfinch, and Martin Goldfinch, who was our chair and had given us incredible advice throughout all the transactions with Fiserv and beyond. He says, Jim, we're not really falling all over ourselves to do a deal anymore. And Jim's like, yeah, okay, Martin, I get it. You got to hurt me a little bit, just don't hurt me too much. So that was it, really. You could really tell when a corporation was ready to do a deal. Their behaviour changed from a lot. They did a hell of a lot of work earlier on, but their behaviour really changed. We're doing a deal. Let's get it done. And we started that deal at the end of January and closed it by the end of February. Everything was done. So yeah, and then the integration was wicked. Our teams already knew their teams. We got on really well. We were their 152nd acquisition, so they knew how to do it. And yeah, second best of all time, they reckon. So it must have been too cheap.
Hey, so looking back, if you hadn't packed your bags and moved the family across to the US, would that deal still would have happened, or was that a critical part to the eventual outcome?
I think it was absolutely critical. Whether the deal for them swung on where I personally was located, they were certainly happy. They rang me. This guy, Steve Olsen, rang me. So are you serious about this? This is just before we signed the partnership deal, and I wasn't going to tell him because I thought they gave him too much leverage, but I felt it was funny and we were close. I said, mate, I've already packed up my house and everything I own is on a ship somewhere between here and we were going to Atlanta, Georgia. And he was like, man, that's punchy. So yeah, I think the key thing is, whether we've got the deal signed or not, they were very keen for us to be there. For us to make it successful, there were two things that we needed to do. We had to be present in market. And we had to stay super, super close to Fiserv in order to keep ourselves relevant, keep front of mind, keep in front of their customers. And so part of the deal that we required was that they gave us space on their premises. They had a key facility in outside Atlanta, which is why we ended up there. That's where all their digital payments and digital banking was. It was wicked, actually. It was in an old resort. So there was in fire
fun
the
times.
Chattahoochee River, and everyone's, well, not us, the trout fishing there, deer running around. It's pretty wicked. But so we stayed there as a pink conference room that we stayed in for 4 years. Look, I think, guys, it was really important that we were there. We just became a part of the fabric. We challenged them a lot. We're probably naughty from time to time in terms of getting in front of their customers when it wasn't perfect for them. They were signing big deals. We might have been a $1 or $2 million mobile banking deal. They're signing $100 million deals for payments and things. And of course, if you're the sales, you guys have sold. If you're the sales guy, and you're not going to risk a $100 million deal for a $1 million.
Little add-ons.
No, but we needed the $1 million deal done. Yeah, I think it was critical. And it was a wicked experience for all of us. It was a different part of the world, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so how much of those learnings are still applicable to date? Adam, so much has changed. Just the concept of moving, relocating, internet, globalized AI. How much of that do you take away and still apply to your portfolio companies?
A lot different, and then a lot still the same. I think it depends a bit on the industry that you're in. For us, we were either selling, when we were actually involved in sales, it was to big banks, Washington Mutual, Wachovia, Bank of America, SunTrust, BB&T, these big American banks, and then the same in Canada and other parts of the world. So you could, and we didn't really, there's no video conferencing. We leveraged the heck out of Skype as much as we possibly could because it was pretty free and everybody had telephone conferencing, and that was why a lot of work was done. But it was important to get in front of people. I think when you're selling, if you look at, say, for example, Tradeify, because you guys are a little bit familiar with it, they're selling to very small businesses and there's no need or expectation, and the economics wouldn't allow you to go and visit those customers to make a sale and support them. So other than managing time zones and local context, you can do it from anywhere.
It's different when you turn to a massive bank. They're expecting to see your face, shake a hand, do all the rest.
Yeah, and you've got I think you want to build a deep understanding of their business and deep empathy. So I think it fits the purpose, what you need to do. I think that one of the things that we always had, and I reflect on a lot and we're proud of, is a high degree of deliberateness. We chased a whole lot of shiny objects as well. We chased a whole lot of deals we never should have chased. We ignored qualification signals that I think we'd now all pick up on. I particularly was guilty of trying to maximize, because we never took on funding. Cash is always king, but cash was really premium for us. And I prided myself on getting the best deal. But what happened is there were quite a few deals that maybe took 12 or 18 months longer to close than if we'd just conceded on price or conceded on some other commercial term and move forward. And by being, I think Bangkok Bank in Thailand was a classic example of that. It took us a lot longer to close than if and the benefit of having it closed early would have been massive for us. But look, so being deliberate, having plans, even if they're really high level, I don't think you're ever too early to plan. Plan doesn't mean you follow it. It means you know whether you're getting where you want to go and where you're changing your mind, right?
That's right. Give you some guidelines. You know where you're walking along, and then you treat business like business, right? You move and shake, and that's the fun part of startups. Always something gets thrown at you and you got to shift and move along to, but having goalposts at least and understanding where you're going, it keeps everyone honest.
Adam, you were talking about bootstrapping the business and obviously being very mindful of cash. You then obviously switched sides. You went from being an operator to an investor. And so have your views changed when it comes to fundraising? When should startups actually consider fundraising? What's been your learnings being on the other side of the table?
Plenty. The world has moved on from the early 2000s, even 2011 when we exited, and I came back to New Zealand in 2012. Things have changed a lot even since then. And the New Zealand ecosystem has matured massively. I'm glad we didn't raise capital, but we did try. There just wasn't a whole lot there are a couple of corporate venture capitalists around. I think raising capital is an important part of many businesses. But I think for your point, Sean, let's get a plan. Let's understand that plan. And let's understand over a period of time where we need to go from A to B, how are we going to measure that? And if we need capital to get from A to B, then let's go find the right capital from the right people. And let's ensure that we get the right amount to get us to B and a little bit on, so we've got a bit of contingency. But if you can get from A to B without raising capital, then you're in just as good shape. Then that's what you should do. Overcapitalized businesses that have got a messy cap table, they can quickly become very challenged.
It's funny to hear you say that, because we're on a similar journey to what you did. Right, we're on the other side now, where we primarily investors. I don't call myself an investor, but I guess we are investors. And I think I spend more time saying to people, you shouldn't take money from us. You don't need it. You already have enough. Just go do your job and you'll get to where you're trying to get to. And my money's just going to sit on the balance sheet. It's a waste of time. Keep doing what you're doing. Come back to me when you have a plan that needs funding to go somewhere. I've probably had 4 meetings this week where I'm like, you don't need capital. Just do this, cut this out. This is dumb. Don't do this instead. Hey, look, you're cash flow positive. Off we go.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. And why do you think they're looking for capital? Is it just habit? Is it the advice they're getting? Do they feel like it'll be bigger, better, faster, more comfortable?
You're probably way more qualified than me to answer this question. But I look at things in Australia and New Zealand, we still tend to watch a lot of what happens in the US. And in the US, culturally, a lot of companies raise capital, and they raise capital very early. And I guess if you're on LinkedIn all the time, you're seeing all these companies raise at very small levels, and they're raising a little bit here. I think it's pretty common now to go and join startup communities, and there's a lot of them now that exist in Australia and New Zealand, and a lot of them are around pitching to a bunch of people, and that's angel driven or whatever it is. And I think it just becomes part of how people expect a startup to be built. I still prefer to build a startup as lean as humanly possible, unless there's really good reason to put money to work on. That money is going to go from being worth $1 to $3. Then sweet, go get money and go do that. Otherwise, you should go as lean as you can to build as good a software business as you can, and then go get money when you're in position of power to raise it. It's always how we raise money, raise from a position of power.
Yeah, I think you're right. For me, I think it's great to have a plan, and you have your plan A. And if that plan A says we need money, then you can come up with a plan B that says we don't need money, and look at the trade-offs and say which one of those is best for me to execute. Vice versa, if you have a plan A that says we don't need money, great, that's a good place to be. Then you come up with a plan B and say, well, what if we had $1 million or we had 5 million or whatever? What would we do differently? And at mcom, we did that a few times. Each year we sit and go, if we'd had a couple of $1 million more last year, would we have done anything differently? And invariably it was, we probably would have spent it.
Yeah,
right?
we would have spent it. Yeah.
And then if we had a couple of $1 million or 5 million more to execute our plan this year, would we do anything different? And the answer was invariably, no, not really. You might tweak a few things, but again, you'd probably spend it. And I think we had a team that when we did the original deal with Fiserv, I think we were 20 people, and we ultimately fell to them. We're a bit over 100, but that, not just the 20 people, but the whole team just was so efficient, so effective, and worked hard. And that was part of the culture. And that allowed us to, we had a lot of those people were in professional services, because about a decent chunk of our business was professional services. That can be a little bit different, because if you can charge those people out, you do want to have more of them. Side of that, where the core value in mcom was built. Yeah, super efficient, amazing people, amazing team, amazing work ethic. And you just want to be, and I think we might get to it a little bit later, but if you think about for New Zealand startups, the fact that it is now possible to build a startup and a meaningful product and a meaningful amount of operating capability with a very small team and a very small amount of money is awesome. That's got to help us, because what New Zealand doesn't have is an oversupply of capital or an oversupply of human resources, right? We've got great human resources. There is the capital there. If you've got a good company, you will raise the capital. But we don't have the abundance of capital that exists in the US. To your point before, Sean, it's driven by the capital over there. I think projects fail much, much, much more quickly, because the capital is going to make sure the great people are on the great project. If it's an average project, all the people just get siphoned out of it.
Yeah. Adam, you've had quite an interesting journey. CEO to investor, back to being a CEO, and back reinvesting. You've obviously seen a lot in the ecosystem. You mentioned that Kiwi ecosystem's come a long way from 10, 12 years ago. So what are those unique strengths? And I guess where does it need to improve? Like, what are the missing elements?
I see a part of it all. Obviously, I'm tech-centric. I've looked at some other stuff, but I don't know anything about it. Those were some of my early lessons. Do what you know and or what you love, but doing stuff that you just don't get because it looks good, probably not what I'd recommend. So tech-centric, obviously Auckland-centric, although I see things around the country. And so I carry that bias in terms of the lens that I have. I think some of the cultural stuff that we have in New Zealand that has persisted for many years, and you can, the old term, number 8 wire, but look, I think we are pretty good as humans in New Zealand, as New Zealanders, at identifying when there's a problem that's bugging us and saying, I'm going to go solve that problem. And I think it was inherent within our culture, and you see it obviously in new immigrants, that's part of what they're looking for, right? They're looking for a great place to live in a new life. And so I think that's really enhanced that we've just got people that, I might be working at a telco, or I'm working at an energy company, or I'm working in government. I see a problem, I solve that problem. Wow, I wonder if I could build a business around that. So I think we see quite a bit of that happening, or people working in a startup that gets big and then they spin out of that to start their own thing. Massive. Well, even mcom, there's been 10, probably 50 odd companies that have been spun out by people who are at mcom before we got acquired, and with Xero it's probably 1,000, right? To that effect, I think spinning those things out is popular. I think that we can be really frugal. I think we've got a small market, so you're able to get access to decision makers and maybe get a proof of concept away, or your first few customers. And so we get these things underway and we do them on a relatively low cost base. I think that what then can be challenging is getting those things offshore to a real market. And I think when we look at, there's a lot of capital for early stage. I think there's pretty good capital available to New Zealand companies now at any stage. You've just got to be good. And with the climate the way it is now, you got to be really good. But I do think that I've looked at a lot of really early stage companies who might have pretty good traction in New Zealand, maybe a little bit in Australia, and they're looking to raise capital to take on the US market. And that's where we all want to be, because it's a massive part of the market, and it's where the exit values are higher. So looking to get in the US, and I just think they've already raised too many rounds of capital, so they've got quite a messy cap table. The founders are a bit diluted. Maybe one or two of the founders has disappeared, and they're still holding most of their equity. So you have a bit of a messy cap table, and that plus maybe looking at US comparables drives a valuation that feels too high for an investor here. But because they don't have any real penetration in the US market, they can't raise capital in the US. And I think we've got to be more cautious when we raise the early rounds of capital, raise less rounds of capital, get more done for less, and try as early as possible to get capital that includes capital from the market you're going to. A lot of these companies end up not being able to raise real money out of the States because the cap table's not supportive of that happening. The key people.
He's already super high.
Yeah. So look, I think we're getting really good at running these companies. I think the amount of people that are giving back, whether it's on boards or investing, or they're creating an ecosystem like Surge has in Wellington with Just My SaaS and the Growth Jam and the Sales Jam, and you're at one of those last week. I saw what the iSouth has done for the whole country, but Centric to Auckland Enterprise Angels, the folks in the different cities. The way to do this now is blueprinted all over the internet, so you don't have to make it up anymore. But new founders are really understanding you've got to be, it's not an art, right? Almost all of this is now science. Even, I've never been a marketer, but marketing's interesting now that it's not so much creative, but scientific. So I think we're getting really good at that stuff. And I think it seems like we're well regarded.
Careful.
Big money overseas are interested in getting involved in New Zealand projects.
Adam, with all your experience, have you noticed that particular sectors or domains seem to perform well compared to the others in terms of the Kiwi startups that are coming out? Is it I don't know, just throwing it out there. Is it more trades focus? Is it fintech? Is it edtech, health tech? Or is it across the board?
Well, I know we seem to be pretty good at space. Isn't New Zealand now the fourth biggest space country on the planet, which is absolutely incredible. Who would have guessed that? You look at what Rocket Lab and Dawn Aerospace and others are doing. See, Fiserv got their electric hydrofoiling passenger ferry launched yesterday. So
I saw that.
It's some amazing stuff going on. I think for me, obviously good in SaaS across the board. There's been some good fintech stuff come out, good health stuff come out. For me, I think the sectors I'm probably not aware of which ones we're most strong in. I think what successful New Zealand companies do well is they build high quality product. Whether it's a rocket or it's a boat or it's a piece of SaaS software for the trades or health, we're never going to have the most capital. We're never going to have the most connections. We're never going to have the most developers or sales or marketing resources. So we have to build good product, and that becomes core to our success. And so that's the thing that I would say is let's not look at startups that will win by spending the most money. I just don't think New Zealand companies will achieve that. Let's build
just FYI. Just to be clear, Australia either.
Yeah. So
I'm going to take us in
10 times more money than we've got.
Yeah, we still have 50,000 times less than the Americans and the Europeans have got. So trying to fight on a money basis is not the right way to build your software company. Let's take it in a different direction. What do you think is the benefit for an up-and-coming startup to have an Adam Clark or a Ricky Septa or a Serge sitting on their board? Well, what do you think? What are some of the things that you see as value that people like yourselves give to Kiwi startups coming up that can get people like yourselves spending time with them over their journey?
So we've got a lot of scars. So I think there's a lot of things. Shit, we tried that. Yeah, we tried that. And it doesn't mean that it won't work because things change, but at least we can steer them around a lot of potholes. I think that we can give them support and encouragement. It's a bloody lonely place to be. And even if you've got a couple of co-founders, it's still a very lonely place to be. So I think having them knowing that you've seen it before, you've been there before, you're there to support them, you're there, they can pick up the phone, right? It is huge. The connectivity. Look, I'm 53. I've just met more people than a 23-year-old founder.
Yes.
And so that ability to just get them to the right people at the right time. And I think having somebody, if you build a bit of a reputation yourself around identifying, maybe having operated a little bit, then if you're investing, people will be more inclined to invest in something and support something that Ricky's invested in than they will that doesn't have a Ricky or a Sean or a Serge or an Adam involved, right? And that's not necessarily that they are relying on you or they're going to hold you accountable, but they just look and say, if Ricky got into this thing,
I've been there, done that, so they obviously seen something.
Yeah. I think there's also, I think that there are some easy bad habits to fall into as a founder. There's a lot of discussion around partnering, and I think partnering is seen by people who haven't done a huge amount of it as being this crazy shortcut.
Yeah.
Partnering can be a massive accelerant, but it is no shortcut. Most partnerships are ill-conceived. Most of them fail. Most of them are like, oh, that's right, I'm having trouble selling this thing, so I'll just get someone else to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at the revenue they've got, partnerships next year, it's going to be $50 million. I'm like, yeah, it's really nice. But I like that you're super keen on it.
So you think if you're IBM, just about every startup signed a partnering agreement with IBM, and IBM does have the ability, at least it used to get you to good scale. But if you're a salesperson working for IBM, or you're a salesperson working at Xero, or you're a salesperson working somewhere else, and your company's just signed this partnering agreement with this little startup with this cool nifty product that you don't know anything about, that you don't know the people, and you've got a relationship with a customer that's worth $10 million a year to you.
Risking it for $100?
No, you're not. And that's fine. That's natural behavior. So I think you've got to ideally you find an organization that is really accustomed to selling lots of other different people's stuff. And I haven't done that, but that could work. Or you've got to find and really invest in a relationship where you are deeply important to the existing products and services that they offer. Like Fiserv didn't partner with us because they needed a mobile banking solution, or they wanted to make a extra few bucks off mobile banking. They were struggling to sell their online banking system, which was the best in the world as a product, because they didn't have a good mobile solution. And and online banking was the key portal to payments. So if you didn't have online banking, you couldn't capture payments and drive their payments revenue. If you didn't have mobile banking, like that is we're only a small part of the deal, but that is a massive issue for them to need to want to solve. So they can build something themselves, or they can partner with someone. And fortunately for us, that's what they chose to do. But at the same time, we took most of the founding team over there. We took most of the leadership team over there. We lived and breathed Fiserv Orange. We were on their premises. We were with their salespeople all the time. We were bickering and arguing and negotiating with them all the time. We just became a part of. We massively invested.
It's different from just signing a partnership agreement and going, yay, they're going to sell for us, and then you go home.
They won't. We know that. So I think startups should be looking for them, but they just need to be aware there's no. I say to people, you can't outsource the hard work. The hard work's going to be there.
No.
You need to suck it up and get it done. And if you decide that the best place you can put your hard work is in one orphan partnership and it meets all the criteria, then go for it. But you're right, Sean, you're not trying a deal and dollars stuff.
Which is a majority of what I see from partnerships when people talk to me about partnerships. I'm going to sign a contract with these guys. I'm like, and what does that mean? They're like, oh, then they'll sell it. I'm like, and how are they going to sell it? They will sell it. I'm like, cool. What materials have they got? Why would they sell it? Who's going to train them? Who's going to install it? Like, there's so much that goes behind all this stuff to think through that usually isn't covered in your partnership agreement. Or if it is, it's like a one-liner. That's why, yeah, they'll do this and nothing to help drive it through. So I think that's a really important point you bring up, because especially nowadays, it's very common to see partnerships early.
My simple rule is, if you can't fix it, don't expect someone else to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, the other thing with partnerships is when you're early, the further you get away from your customer, the less you learn, right? And I think what we all know now is that she who learns fastest wins. That is what this game's all about. Have your plan, create your hypotheses, run your experiments, measure, adjust. And that's true of most of that learning when you really look to moving the business forward is going to be in the market. So if you've outsourced being in the market, then they get the learnings.
Yeah. Talking about learning, Adam, what have you learned when it comes to investing in startups that you wish you'd known when you started on your investment journey?
So we can steal them.
What's changed? Yeah, exactly. What are the pointers for idiots like us?
Oh, you've done more than me, I think. Look, so everyone's different. So when you're looking at getting involved, as I said before, something you know and ideally something you love, something that excites you, making sure that the founding team, often the CEO interacts more with investors than maybe other parts of the team, but the founding team of people you just enjoy solving problems with, that you're both listening is really important. And then the people are everything, right? So looking for a founding team that are super focused, really smart, so high intellect, high energy. We can help these guys out a lot, but you can't teach them to be brainier. There's some genetic stuff that you look for. You can direct their energy, but you can't really help someone have more energy. They've just got it. I think they've got to really understand, like you mentioned before, Sean, these startups are fun. And like I played rugby with a guy who loved being in the bottom of a ruck. He loved it, but that's not fun for everybody. And I think a lot of the startup fun is like being at the bottom of a ruck. You're getting the door slammed in your face all the time. You're struggling. You can't hire someone. You're running out of cash. Some customers churn. Someone's yelling at you. One of your staff's not well. All the stuff getting thrown at you. That someone that's going to embrace that, it's not always going to be fun, but someone who understands that overcoming that adversity is what we really mean by it being fun.
It'd be a little crazy where you find that stuff fun. You're happy to get punched in the face 50 times. If you're that person, this will work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Each punch in the face just for one to get closer to a win, right?
Yeah.
So I think those things are critical. Someone who, look, I think there is a lot of scope for people to start businesses that are going to be lifestyle businesses, and that's okay. Everyone should embrace that, but they shouldn't be raising capital, right?
Agreed.
And I've had that a couple of times when there's been that either they didn't really understand or we certainly didn't ask the question, but 2-3 years in, you look for an update and they go, it's all going all right. And
I'm living a good life. Things are great. Everything's exactly what I wanted it to be. Yeah.
You think we need to grow a bit faster? No, because then we'd have to raise more capital, and we think there's those things should just be sorted out early on. So you make sure that you're aligned with some of that stuff. I like people that are, that are planful. They understand that there's a creative element to this, but it's not all coming up with ideas and strategies. It's actually putting in place the systems, the processes, the repeatability. If you want to scale, you've got to be data obsessed. You've got to have the processes. You've got to have the control mechanisms to make sure that you're learning. You've got to have an experimental culture and philosophy so you can get out there and learn faster than anybody else and make progress quicker. So those are probably things that I think about most generically. And then for me, I'm interested in stuff that people that are pretty ambitious, globally minded. I'm interested at the moment really in being way less hands-on than I was initially. When I started doing this in sort of 2012, 2013, I was probably way too hands-on. I was told by one of the CEOs I was working with, he thought we were co-CEOs, and I'm not sure that was a compliment.
That's us.
Yeah. I think early on, the division between management and governance is nowhere near as clear or important as it is maybe in a big corporation, but it's still important in understanding you got to get out of their way and let them, as our rugby teams might say, sports teams might say, express themselves. You do, right? If you're all over them, then not only are they not enjoying it, they're going to defer to you, and actually you're just getting in the way. So certainly learnt that.
So I think a lot of that stemmed from you being an operator, Adam, previously. So you're an operator investor. Has them been advantageous as far as you're concerned in terms of your investment outputs, or has there been a bit of a barrier in terms of how you think, because you're not a spreadsheet-led person? Like how much of that has played a part in what you invest in? Are you looking at things like that are more operational heavy versus financially outcome based?
No, I think I'm looking for a successful project, and ultimately businesses are about having great impact. And I think it's great if you have a purpose that's not just making money. And that's what drives the decisions. That's what drives the team. That's what drives people to want to work for you, customers to want to work with you. But having a financial model that says if you achieve that outcome, you will create a really valuable asset. There are things, you guys know, it'd probably be easier, well, maybe not right now, it'd be easier just to go invest in property and stick your money somewhere else, right? But it's not really adding anything. It's not that interesting to me. So the operational piece for me is, where having been an operator and having now gone back and done it again, there's a couple of things. One, you know what good patterns look like. You know what's important to put in place, even if I don't know how to put it in place. Right? We need to have sales processes, not just people out selling. Right? Now, do I know some tools? Do I have some vague ideas about what that might look like? Sure. Do I know how to do it? No. There's experts that do that, and that's true across every part of the business.
Yeah.
I think that it helps with that, and you can recognize whether the people in the business are really zoned in on doing that, on putting those processes, on putting metrics in place, on measuring themselves against that. So I think that makes a big difference. And I think, look, one of the things, having gone back into the CEO role again at Groove, is I developed a huge amount of empathy for maybe what a pain in the ass I was getting way too in the weeds for the CEOs beforehand. Because it's a tough job, and you need a lot of support. And I think that, again, maybe part of what you can bring when you've done this before is you understand it's the CEO's a tough job, and you need the support, and you need some guidance and someone just to vent to, and someone who can connect you with people or help you see the wood for the trees. But you don't need someone that's in your shit all day, every day, right? Even if it can be helpful, it's just demoralizing, I think. And look, from an operating perspective, it's helpful that if you've got someone on the board that's been there before, because you might have a board that's made up of a variety of different people, someone that's been in that chair before can just bring that perspective and help translate things through to the other members of the board who might be bringing. If I think I was on the board of Parrot Analytics for a long time, and Larry's a great operator, the founder CEO. But other than me on the board, they're mostly from the TV and TV analytics industry, not from running an early stage tech company.
Yeah, nice. Solid tips. Adam, last one from me. When you do decide to hang up your boots, you mentioned you're only 53, so some times ago, but when you do
50 more
decide to
years.
do that, 50 more years. When you're 103 and when you look back, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your legacy to be?
I don't know, mate. To be honest, I think I probably a lot of what has motivated me when I'm in businesses is not to let folks down, and that's probably not like it's effective, but it's probably not the best motivator. I've got things that keep me on track. I have these recurring emails or tasks come up, and one of them is enjoy the journey, enhance the lives of others. So, look, if I could do that, it'd be great. Actually get involved in things and behave in a way that I'm enjoying, and that's actually helpful to the enjoyment, the progression, and the financial outcomes that the people you're doing it with. That'll be pretty good. In a work context.
So you do know.
Legit. Mate, his first answer was the most honest answer. I don't know. That's what my answer would be. I don't know idea.
Then start making stuff up.
Yeah. And he did a good job of it. It was excellent.
Then it sounds good, so you carry on with it, and it sounds legit. All right. Good job with that.
What's yours then, Richard?
You put me on the spot. I think something similar. I think giving back to the community, helping the next generation, sharing all that insights that we've learned. I think that'd be a win. Obviously, if I can make my kids better human than I've been, then I think I'm winning.
That's easy.
Yeah. Exactly. The last
You could probably tick that one off as a given.
You can tick it off now.
I've already achieved it. So I've already done my part. Hey, Adam, thank you for all those insights, mate. We'll take you through a quick fire round. These are just fun. We ask everyone who comes on the show the same questions.
These are the hard questions.
Wow. They can be.
Yeah. You only had one answer per question.
Only one.
Yeah.
Only one. I think I know the answers to some of these for you, but let's ask. Favorite sports?
Yeah, playing would definitely be rugby back in the day. Just incredible. Now it's anything in on the water or in the mountains.
Nice.
Favorite sports team? You didn't answer
that. We know. He has to say all.
We have to say it though.
Yeah.
He might have changed. It might be someone else.
No, the All
He's changed.
We'll go with the All
New
Blacks.
Zealand skiing team.
Georgia Bulldogs.
I think
Nice. Sport with any team with one of my kids in it would be the honest answer.
Yeah. There you go. See, it's not All Blacks. You're wrong, Ricky. It's any team with one of his kids.
We said only one. We didn't say multiple, so only one.
True.
What about favorite movie of all time? When you're chilling out in Queenstown, what are you putting on?
Yeah, I'm not a huge movie guy, so this becomes a little bit cliche, and I end up at Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption, Dead Poet Society, etc. So I might get one other things, but
just one. Just one. You're falling into the same trap.
I think something like the series. I think of things like Breaking Bad are freaking absolutely unbelievable. Just watching that story unfold.
I can accept that. Breaking Bad is a fair answer.
I haven't seen it. What about this one? What favorite drink after a
you
good
can
run
never
on the mountain?
You can never have one drink.
No, Type.
All of the above, to be honest. Depends on the location. Coming down off Cardi's down at the tavern with a pint of hazy and a dirty old plate of loaded wedges.
What I've learned here with Adam is, okay, you're going to die. You're allowed one drink before you die. What drink are you going to have?
What's your last drink?
Yeah.
Hazy IPA is what I have.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
I think I'd be thirsty, so we'll do that.
Yeah, definitely be thirsty.
Yeah.
Thirsty.
What about this one? Favorite place to visit? Not for work, but just for joy and fun. What's your favorite place on this planet?
Italy.
Entire country?
So you said I'm only that one answer, bro.
He's struggling to narrow down which drink he wants, and you want him to narrow down where he goes in Italy.
It's just like Europe.
And I got a super close friend of mine that that spends a lot of time in Treviso, and we're close to the family around there. That's outside Venice. That whole area is epic.
Yeah, awesome.
Given you asked Queenstown in the winter, in the summer.
Yeah. Nice, awesome. I'll take that. Now, this is a hard one. Your last meal, Adam. Your absolute last meal. You get given 2 jars. One says crunchy, the other one says smooth. Both are peanut butter. Which one are you picking?
Vegemite, sure name, mate. Vegemite.
I love Vegemite too, but you only get two jars. None of them say Vegemite. You only got crunchy or smooth.
Smooth.
You got to pick
I'll
one of
go
them.
smooth.
Smooth. It was all going so well.
That's a terrible answer.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna blame that on the multiple head injuries from rugby and falling down the mountains.
To tell what I was doing, I've started with some friends doing a cold plunge in the morning, 3 minutes at 3 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable focus throughout the day. But we do a Wim Hof breathe beforehand, 3
Yes.
And on the third one, I went hard out. Thought I'm going to see if I just smash it. And at the end of that, I could do a minute of the breathing and then just stop for a minute and a half or more. You don't need to breathe. So the guys so I'm going hard out. The guys, and we're lying on the floor of a garage, they're doing their minute and a half and quiet, but I'm still breathing. And they're going, man, what's that? He's freaking going hardcore today. He's gone up with something else. I passed out. I was still breathing. I couldn't even. They said I kept breathing through their minute and a half. Then they had to come and.
Jeez.
Yeah, that might more be why I'm not focused on what the right peanut butter is rather than.
Yeah, 100%. That's where you
Rather
lost the
than ring.
crunchiness.
Yeah.
It happened in that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Right. It was going to be crunchy, but I think we blame it on the cold plunge for picking smooth today. Fair enough.
Crunchy
Hey,
peanut butter will
fun,
get you
guys.
5 minutes in a cold plunge.
Tomorrow, if you eat a whole jar. Adam, thank you once again for coming on, mate. Thank you for
Thanks,
sharing
mate.
all those insights. It's been awesome.
Yeah, good fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.